So what if a cryptocurrency, something like Bitcoin, actually became the world's currency? I mean, not just an investment you check on your phone, but the money we all use for, well, for everything. It sounds like pure science fiction, right? But it's genuinely one of the wildest, most ambitious dreams in all of modern finance. And in this explainer, we're going to dig into just how big that dream is and what it would really take to pull it off.
You know, when the famous explorer George Mallory was asked why on earth he wanted to climb Mount Everest, his answer was simple. Just 3 words. Because it's there. It's this perfect response that just captures that human drive to take on a challenge that seems completely impossible, just for the sake of doing it.
And that exact same spirit is what's fueling the ambitions of so many crypto pioneers. Their goal, their Everest, is to create a single decentralized currency for the entire planet. So today, we're going to map out that epic climb.
All right, so here's our game plan. We'll start with the dream itself, what we're calling the Everest of money. Then we need to understand how our current money system actually works. From there, we'll look at the 2 different identities Bitcoin has, weigh the arguments for and against this global takeover, and then finally, we'll ask, what could the next chapter for money really look like?
So what is this wildest macro dream we keep talking about? It's the idea that a cryptocurrency could actually scale up to become a true international reserve currency, something that could replace, or at the very least, compete head-to-head with the US dollar. I mean, if that were to happen, it wouldn't just be a tech story, it would fundamentally rewrite the entire global order of power.
But look, to really get your head around a revolution, you first have to understand the system it's trying to replace, right? So let's take a quick look under the hood of our current financial system.
And that brings us to a really crucial question. If I asked you right now, where does most of our money come from? You'd probably say the government, or maybe the central bank, printing it. But what if I told you that's not really how it works at all?
The reality is pretty stunning. Physical cash, the notes and coins the government makes, that's only about 5% of the money supply in most modern economies. The other 95%? Well, it's created out of thin air by private, for-profit commercial banks every single time they issue a loan. This also means the system pours fuel on the fire when times are good by lending more, and it slams on the brakes when times are bad by lending less, making booms and busts even worse.
And this isn't some new secret. Henry Ford said this almost a century ago, and it perfectly captures just how shocking this system is when you first hear about it. The fact that private companies create almost all of our money is one of the most fundamentally misunderstood things about the world we live in.
Okay, so with that context, where does something like Bitcoin fit into this picture? Well, to answer that, you have to understand that it's trying to be 2 very, very different things at the same time. Is it a new kind of asset, or is it a new kind of currency?
And this is the critical distinction. Right now, Bitcoin has been hugely successful as a crypto asset. Think of it as digital gold, something people buy and hold on to, hoping it'll store value. And hey, that's a multi-trillion-dollar success story. But that is a completely different universe from being a cryptocurrency. Something you actually use every day to buy a coffee or pay your rent, like $1 or €1. That second part, that's the Everest we're talking about climbing.
And let me tell you, that climb is incredibly dangerous. There are some really powerful arguments, the bear case, that say a cryptocurrency will never reach that summit and become true global money. So let's look at the obstacles in the way. The path to the top is just riddled with problems. For the average person, it's just too complicated and hard to trust. The price swings are so wild, it's useless for pricing things. And there's the constant nightmare of security. Lose your keys, you lose everything. Then you zoom out and you see massive competition from thousands of other coins and the fact that a tiny number of whales own a huge chunk of it. And way out on the horizon, there's even the threat that quantum computing could one day break the very math that holds it all together.
But honestly, you can debate all those points. The single biggest wall in the way is just simple human inertia. We are creatures of habit. If you get paid in dollars, you think in dollars, and you spend in dollars. Breaking that cycle, convincing billions of people to take the extra step of converting their paycheck into a different currency just to live their lives, that is a truly monumental challenge.
Okay, but what if there's another way up the mountain? What if there's a different route? Let's flip the coin and look at the bull case now, and explore the possible paths that could actually lead to the top, because there are some powerful geopolitical forces that could carve out a path.
As the world gets more fractured, the idea of a truly neutral currency, one that isn't controlled by the US or by China, starts to sound pretty appealing to a lot of countries. At the same time,
The US dollar's dominance is already shrinking relative to its share of the global economy, and that's creating a kind of power vacuum. This could be the perfect moment for what the economist F.A. Hayek dreamed of decades ago, money that is completely separated from the control of any state.
So how could this actually happen? Well, the first step is pretty much already underway, solidifying its place as digital gold. The next step probably isn't world domination, but finding a killer niche. And the most fascinating idea here is the rising machine economy. Just imagine AIs and automated systems using a cryptocurrency to pay each other for data and computing power. It becomes their native language of value. And as we humans interact more and more with that AI-driven economy, we might just start using its currency too, creating a bridge from their world into ours.
Which brings us to our final view. We've seen the incredible ambition of this climb, the very real dangers of the ascent, and the weird, unexpected paths that might just lead to the top. The huge question of what comes next for global money really does hang in the balance.
So we're left with this. Is this whole dream just a fantasy, an Everest that can never truly be scaled? Or are we just witnessing the slow, difficult, but steady ascent toward a completely new era for money? The answer to that is going to define the next chapter of our financial world. And right now, that chapter is still unwritten.